Welcome to the special episode of Navratri and Dasera at the Emerging Lawyer series of the Coffee Corner Show, powered by the Emerging India Forum (TIF) and a tech partner, Prime Infotech Solution. Theme is from labor laws to family matters, the many hats of advocate Nav Malika. In the ever evolving world of law, few professionals wear as many hats with such impact as Nav Malika is doing. As a founder of Preserve Legal Law Firm, she has championed causes spanning employment and labor law, post training, corporate advisory, and family law. With years of diverse legal experience from corporate advisory to litigation, she has carved a niche as both a lawyer and a trusted trainer. Today, conversation, we sit down with her to explore her journey of building a practice rooted in fairness, her passion for empowering individuals, and the values that guide her inside and outside the courtroom. And we also come to know Namalika as a person. So, welcome, Namalika, today's special episode. It is end of Navratri and then Dasera tomorrow. So, you are at
Well,
intersection.
thank you so much, Amir, for inviting me over, and a very happy Dasera and Navratri to everyone who's celebrating. And it's an honor to be here with you today and having this conversation over coffee.
Yeah. So let me explain you. There'll be three rounds: professional, personal, and a surprise rapid fire round. Where in the hot seat, like at Coffee with Karan, and here's a gift, Legal AI 101, where you're just initially having conversation. So you will get this book autographed, and you can then continue the conversation in more depth. So let's
Wonderful.
begin. Friend of mine, Amir Virani, was a Coffee Corner legal tech evangelist at Prime Infotech Solution, author of 15 books. So, Namalika, you have built Preserve Legal Law Firm from the ground up. What was the turning point that convinced you to start your own practice, and how has experience been? And I'm adding one more layer. What's the story behind naming of your law firm Preserve Legal Law Firm?
Thank you so much, Amir, for that question. It is a loaded question because I think I have always had the thought that I wanted something of my own. So even though when I started my career, I started with law firms. I had worked for some seniors of mine, but eventually, sometime post COVID was when I felt that I think I've learned how to step foot. I think my foot is there in the door. And now I think I can go towards, owning it, aiming higher. And that is how Preserve Legal came into being. So it was basically a journey, I think me going to law school, then from there, going into practice, learning it all in terms of corporate advisory, learning practice as well, litigation and all. um, and then eventually, yes, it was, I think, my calling that I wanted to do. And I think one more thing that drove me to set up my own firm was the fact that I wanted to bring about a change. And, sometimes you need to be in a position to determine those changes. And, you can't always do so when you are the person who has to align with other people. You need to sometimes take those independent shots. And that, I think, was one of the main factors why Preserve Legal was born. And it's been a fabulous experience. Yes, I've had sleepless nights, because from the first time when you're setting things up to having your own associates, as a law firm, you become a family. So you have to nurture your family, and that's how you also grow as a professional, as a person. So it has been a really roller coaster of a ride, both in terms of, having the first case when you start your practice, your first client, your first case, and the difficulties that one faces in, retaining and bringing in new clients. So from that point to having associates, having people working with me who've been with me since day one, and they continue to be there with me till today. So it has been rewarding, it has been fulfilling, and amazing to say the least. And I'm thankful to each and every person. And I would say that today I'm even thankful to you because you are also contributing into my journey and into Preserve Legal. So thank you so much. And why Preserve Legal? Why is our firm known as Preserve Legal? Because I think the thought was that somewhere, sometimes, it's important to preserve more than just fight for things, preservation comes before things get spoiled. So, our motto is also to provide solutions and to look at a situation holistically where before there is something big that comes across that goes wrong, if we are able to mitigate that to happen, that is where we strong. That's where we stand, and that's where we feel that is our forte. So that was the reason why it's called Preserve Legal.
Beautiful. So let's build the conversation. Now, Malika, labor and employment law is rapidly evolving in India. What's the most significant shift you have witnessed in the past few years?
So, when we talk about labor law, we all know about the new codes that have come into existence a couple of years ago. They still stand to be notified. They've not been notified, but we do have a lot of acts in labor law. I mean, for a layman, I would just say that there are somewhere close to 20 acts that we refer to when we are looking towards compliance for any company or any factory or any commercial establishment per se. Now, a lot of and in India now, because recently we concluded the Viksit Bharat, the conclave that was being organized, where we are now aiming to see what India should be able to achieve by 2047, and we want that there should be an ease of doing business, and that ease of doing business has brought about this change in labor laws because everybody realizes that there is so much of compliance when it comes to labor law. There is so much to understand when it comes to labor law that not everybody is able to understand and comply. So somewhere or the other, see, we all will contribute and only then will our nation be built. And for that contribution, we need to have proper guidelines whereby everybody feels secure. And that is where, labor laws come in. They come in to protect not just the employee, but also the employer. And yes, now because we have, when we started today's discussion, we went into AI and all. So today, at everybody's fingertips, you have all the laws readily available. So everybody is becoming aware. And I think the ideology behind simplifying with the codes is this, that everybody should be aware about their rights and be able to determine, fight for it. And at the end of the day, have a workforce that is not just aligned to the laws, but are contributing and are very, very aware and are able to compete at the international platform where India seeks to reach. So that's where,
Beautiful.
the labor law is
Okay.
heading it.
So my next question, many businesses view compliance as a burden. How do you reframe the narrative to show it as a tool for growth and protection?
Okay, so this here I would like to share a story, and that story is just coming from today morning. I was sitting with a client of mine, and we were having a discussion about certain compliances that need to be done. And of course, as lawyers, when we provide a service, there is an invoice that goes to the clients, be it the company and anyone. So, they were like, there are so many compliances, and, why do we have to do these and everything? So, we got into the depth of things, and something which I just mentioned a little while ago. When we do these compliances, it's not just that, the government will not come calling onto our doorsteps and say that because you're non-compliant now, you have to pay a fine or, something has to be done about it. But it is to provide the sense of security and assurance to each and every person who's associated with your organization that we are aligned, that we are there and ensuring that you get the best when you are ending up spending 1/3 of your life. because it is a true fact that, we are all working and we all end up spending at least one third of our lives in our workplaces. And if we don't get that basic assurance safety from our workplaces, and the assurance and safety come from the fact that you are compliant, that you are providing the best for your employees. So this is where, I think there has to be a mind shift change, that don't just seek or look at compliance that, oh, because it's the government mandate, we have to do tick, tick, tick. No, please invest the time, because that also helps you to have policies that are aligned not just with the law, but with your practice, your industry, and your employees. It's very, very important.
Wow. So, what's that memorable moment you had in the labor and employment case?
Every single day brings about a new challenge, a new experience, and a new learning. And, I would like to highlight that this is not a space where a lot of lawyers work in. And even if
Yes.
they do, their practice is, it's a very niche practice, because yes, labor laws seem easy, but they are a little typical to deal with. So, there was this one time I was in the court, and there was this person who came up to me. I just concluded my arguments for a matter, and I was just getting out of the courtroom. And this person comes up to me and he says that, ma'am, I don't have the fee to pay you, but this is what has happened with me, and I would want to, undertake some action, because it's my hard earned money at the end of the day. And, you know, I don't know. And this was I think one of the first 10 cases, okay, at Preserve Legal. So this, I'm talking about when we had just started the practice. And my associate, my junior, he was with me at that point in time. And I think we both looked at each other without a split second. Okay, we were like, absolutely, you don't have to pay us anything. We will help you out, because
Okay.
we knew that, looking at the person, that he it's okay, we can, as lawyers, pursue things suo moto. I think that is also what is warranted. As officers of law, this is our responsibility as well. So we undertook that matter, and I was so glad that we really did not have to undertake litigation in it. We sent out a notice. The company, I think, also, responded well, and we had a discussion with them, and they were like, yes, this is our owed liability, and due to whatever reason, we didn't pay it out, but yeah, we are making out the payment. And so within a span of, I think, 2 to 3 months, that person was able to get the money. And the reason why that money was very important for that person was because there was a wedding in his immediate family, and he needed the money for that.
Mhm.
So, he got the money. He was very happy. And as a token, he was like, ma'am, I was not expecting that I will get it so soon, but please tell me what would be your fee. And, we were like, no, there is no fee. If you really want to do something for us, then just please consider whatever you thought that you would pay us to be, something that we contribute to your family member's wedding, and let that those blessings come to us, and that's about it. So I think that is one moment that is there in my mind, and that stays rent
Wow,
free.
beautiful. So, let's build up. Family law often involves emotionally charged cases. How do you separate the professional from the personal when emotions run high?
See, I think as lawyers, empathy is very, very important, and irrespective of what field of law you are practicing in, empathy is important. Though, don't let empathy overpower yourself when you are making professional decisions, when you're strategizing, but empathy towards your client is very, very important. Now, it is very difficult. And again, I don't know, I work well with examples, so I will just tell this also in a story format. So, one of my associates, about 2 years ago, we were having a conversation, and, She said that, ma'am, don't you feel exhausted, at the end of the day when you hear, because family law, some stories are very, very difficult, you know.
Yes.
Uh, Sometimes you want to empathize, but you don't know if your empathy is enough for the person to the trouble that they are facing. Nonetheless, you have to lend a sounding ear, and we do that. So when we were having that conversation, she asked me that, how do you do it? Like, doesn't it bother you? Doesn't it stay with you? So I told her that one day, and I think this was a learning I got from one of my seniors when I started my career, that it's important to be empathetic. It's important to at times even be sympathetic, but it'll be very wrong as a lawyer if you start to look at your life from the same lens. So when you leave your chair, when you leave your office, leave those things there. Do not carry them forward. And this, I will absolutely say that, no two matters, no two situations are the same. So don't get into comparing it. That because it happened with somebody I know and I love, my friend, or, some person in my family, so similar thing will happen with you. No, it won't. And don't even manifest it. See, sometimes when we are thinking like this, we are manifesting things like this. So, no,
Yes.
listen to it, be empathetic, be vigilant, give them sound advice, but leave it right there. Don't carry it forward. Because the moment you start carrying it forward, it will have an impact on your emotional well being. And then the support that the others seek out from you will not be in a position to give them that support.
Wow. Beautiful. So again, going memory down the lane, was it
Yes.
memorable moment you had while dealing with your family law case?
See, family law, as I said, they're very tricky. At times, when we are undertaking matters of family law, it's not just about adults, it's about children who are involved.
Yes.
And at times this is something that I've observed. We as lawyers, tend to become so mechanical, where we are so invested in applying our own strategies and what to get the best that we can get for our client, that at times one thing that the courts have always said, that this law also says, when dealing with children, is first and foremost, at the paramount, look at the well-being of the child.
Yes.
So
Yes.
in one such situation, we had a very tricky case where the other party had asked for getting the full custody of the child. The child was with the mother at that point in time, and the mother was, she was like, I can't imagine my life without my child. So whatever happens, I don't want to part with the child. And the situation was that the mother was not in a position to provide that well-being for the child. She had the best interest, there was no doubt about it, but she just did not have the means to give the life which the other person could. And those moments are heartbreaking, that however
Yes.
much you would want to appeal to their logical side, you would want them to see the bigger picture, and also understand that what is in the best interest of the child. But still, you can't help beyond a point in time. But the good part about that particular matter was this: it stretched for a very long time, but at the end of the day, I think both the parents, after sufficient passage of time, were able to see that the best thing for the child would be that they both share a joint custody. So that was a very happy, understanding that was reached. We were also very glad because we were pushing for that, that they should realize that it's in the best interest of the child, and they did. And I'm glad to say that today also they both have a very happy relationship of friends between them, and their child has been thriving since. So that was a
Wow.
great win
Wow.
for us.
So now, Malika, how do you balance the dual role of being a lawyer and a posh trainer? One dealing with clients in conflict, the other with prevention and awareness.
So, I think these two, they're two aspects of law. You can't remove one from the other. They're the two sides of a coin. So when we talk about fighting a case, being a litigating lawyer, going to the court, eventually when we come out, the advice which you would hear from almost every lawyer would be that listen, if there's a dispute, why don't we just sit down, settle it? Also, why don't we take measures that the disputes don't arise? So when we look into contracts, when we look into other aspects, we always say that, right? We should have events of default clearly laid out, where if there's a dispute, we can mitigate it, think about everything that can go wrong, and then have that imbibed into a particular contract. So I think it's something very similar, but Posh as a subject matter is very close to my heart. I've been in this space for over 10 years, and I've been providing training not just to the employees but even to IC members. The reason why this particular aspect is very close to my heart is because somewhere or the other, and I'm not going to be saying that it's only women who face, because this is something that can happen to anyone. Uh, but it's something very serious which we have trivialized.
Yes.
So that's the reason why, it was one of the things, when for the first time I came into it, I was like, no, this is what I want to pursue alongside my practice. I was like, yes, this awareness is very important. And that's where that aspect. And see, as lawyers, I think, and over this period of time, we lawyers love to speak. And if the talking is something with regards to spreading a good message, absolutely always available to be talking. So I think that's where the journey started, and I'm really glad that I did. And over a period of time, now with a firm of mine, Counsel Quest, we undertake trainings very, very regularly. We are associated with a lot of our clients, and we are there. And we want that people should realize that safety and security is applicable in every aspect of life, specifically the aspect which is pertaining to coming to work.
Wow. So, what was a memorable moment you had in one of your Posh training sessions?
So, when we talk about Posh trainings, the trainings are almost more or less, a learning curve for us as well. Because
Yes.
the kind of questions that are asked, the situations that sometimes are put across to us are very, very unique and very, very particular. So, in one such situation, there was a point in time I was acting as an external member for a company, and we had a case, a complaint was received under Posh. And the complaint was on the lines that, there is this person who continuously keeps on looking at me, and I feel uncomfortable with it because we know, right? Uh, Stalking, that's what it
Yes.
comes under.
Mhm.
So as an IC, of course, we called the person and we asked that, such and such complaint has come against you. What do you have to say? So the person says that, while I work, I have a habit of zoning out. So he was in, he was just generally thinking about work, zone out, and everything. And he was like, there is a partner of mine, who used to sit across to me previously and has been working with me all these years, that this person can vouch for the fact that this happens with me. So, of course, we called that person also, and that person said that, yes, this happens. So, in that particular context, we made this person realize that, we are not saying that you are intending to make the workplace an uncomfortable space for another person, but unconsciously, your acts are contributing to it. So, we need
Yes.
to look into it, we need to work into it. Okay. Now, this conversation happened. A year later, I was undertaking a training in the very same organization. And this person, after the training was done, comes up to me and says that, what, after that incident happened, I thought about it. And now I have placed myself at an angle that if I do zone out, because, that's how I work. However much I've tried, it just doesn't go away. But what I've started doing is that I sit at an angle that now, even if I'm zoned out, I am looking at a blank wall. I'm not looking towards anyone.
Mm.
Right. So, this is the awareness and this is the prevention that we talk about. And
Beautiful.
I was very glad that people are understanding that, even though you don't have any intent of making people feel uncomfortable, but if they are, then yes, it is your responsibility to make sure that it doesn't get repeated.
Beautiful. So, as you said about Posh external members, IC members, for our viewers out there, uh, briefly talk about this and how do you see the role of Posh external members evolving in India over the next decade?
Posh is now coming with its full force. In the past 1 year, there have been certain guidelines that have been given by the Supreme Court as well. Compliance is absolutely at the helm of everything. And the reason why it's being pushed is because it's been felt that people are not taking it as seriously. So I will say that yes, external members, the job is very, very important. It's a very important role. We can't just say that, oh, because we've done a few trainings and we've read the act, then we can be external members. No, because, um, when a real life situation comes to you, you don't just have to look at it from an angle of, let's say, the law. Okay, so it's not just about reading the law, it's also about interpreting the law. Then, you have to be empathetic. You have to bring in the angle that, you know, in an organization, the role of an HR is very, very important. Why? Because they not only hear your grievances, but they provide you the safety in the atmosphere, right? Where you can be a safe space for them to share it. So when we talk about an external member should have possess the qualities of knowing the law, knowing HR practices, having a psychological, bent of mind as well to read the situation and to look at it from a perspective that will it be repeated in future or not, right? So yes, the external member role is very important. It is coming out in a big way. A lot of people are signing up for it. Just my request that, go out, experience people, experience the law as well, know, dive deep into it, understand psychology, because that helps. That absolutely helps you. And I would also, maybe give a shout out to the organizations who are understanding how important it is. Also, to the organizations who still think that, it's just a compliance and let's just do the bare minimum. No, please look out for the fact that, there may be somebody who's suffering and they're not able to talk about it because we don't have a conducive environment. I
Beautiful.
urge young lawyers that, look seriously towards this act. It has a lot of potential. It is going to grow. It's just been 12 odd years that it is into existence. So, yes, it's got a long way to go, but dedicate time, energy in understanding it, learning how to interpret it, because, yes, it's here to stay now.
Wow. My next question is also very impactful. As a woman in law, how has gender equality evolved in our Indian legal system?
Okay. Before I answer this question, I really want to ask one question to you, Amir. Is this a question that you would have asked a male lawyer?
Why not? I've done.
You have? Well, then I commend you for it because most of the times these kind of questions are not asked, and I am no offense here to you or to anyone, but these questions come because we are automatically saying that there is a divide. We're already keeping the two participants or, however people identify themselves at different platforms at different levels. I'm a lawyer. I would like to be treated as a lawyer, irrespective of how I look, what I would like me to be addressed as, right? When you see me, just see a person, don't see a gender. But to answer your question, there are challenges. I'm not going to lie. Yes, there are challenges. Sometimes you may not be looked at as the first choice because you are by yourself. And in general, we've associated certain terms with women, that they are moody. And, again, you know what reference I'm trying to give. So, yes, these things have an impact. Another thing that has an impact is that, at a lower level. So, if you're going to a high court or a Supreme Court, yes, you've got good amenities, you've got good facilities available. But when you go at a lower level, you're going to a district court or a forum, etc. This state in which, and I'm going to be, you'll say that it's very funny, but the state of the facilities is so bad.
Many,
It's
many.
so bad, okay, that as women lawyers, as a woman, I would not go there. I would not
Mm,
want to use those facilities. And it's there. That's how it is. And nothing is being done to change it. And this, I'm not even talking from the perspective of what happens inside a court. That is a different thing altogether. But this, I'm just talking from a perspective that you're visiting a particular office, and these are the basic things that are missing. Right. Now, coming to the challenges of the profession, I will say that intellectually, there aren't very many challenges, because I think we come into a profession where, if you are able to apply your mind, then you'll do good. Rest of the things you can work on, being an orator, how to deliver things, that anyone can work on. But yes, if you have a sharp mind, you have a big scope in this particular industry. People, and this happened with me, okay? So some years ago, me and my partner, uh, my business partner, we had gone for a meeting at the time when, the firm that I was working at there. And the meeting was supposed to happen with me, but because, I was that day accompanied with my business partner, the conversation shifted to him. All the while, the person was talking to him, while the technical aspect of those things had to be answered by me. So my partner had to intervene and say multiple times that, listen, she's the subject matter expert here. Why don't you ask those
mm,
questions to her?
mhm.
We're at the same level. Now, this sort of a thing should not happen. We say that we are now moving ahead with the times and we are bringing in artificial intelligence. Listen, this is emotional intelligence. Please learn this. It's the bare minimum that you can offer. So yes, there are these things that happen. We do face it. But I think over a period of time, I've learned to call it all out. I call it out when I feel that it's not okay. And yeah, but and I try that, all the people who work with me, people who are associated with me, never have that feeling. So that is
Mm,
something that I work towards.
wow. So, uh, how has the leadership style evolved over the years, Namalika?
Leadership, as a terminology, I sometimes feel tends to again put people on different platforms. I would say that rather than using the word leadership, I mean, we can look at it from a different perspective and a different term, but primarily when I am a person to whom my associates are looking up to, more than just advising them on law, I think a lot of advisory, spoken, unspoken, that we give is towards the conduct that one is
Yeah.
supposed to have with your peers, in your profession, and also in your personal life, right? We all learn from each other. And if that learning is a give and take, which generally does not happen beyond a certain point, I have seen this, and it does happen that when you are a super senior, you wouldn't interact with the interns or you wouldn't interact with the associates. And there is that disconnect. So, however nice, let's say the leadership is, but if that messaging, if that persona is not being passed on through the people who are in between, then even though you may have a good leadership team, it is really of no consequence to the people who are actually working. So I believe, it's important to have that giving nature. As a leader, you need to be available at all times to your people. And it shouldn't be that, no, if you want to come to me, you have to come through that person. Because there's a possibility that you're not comfortable with that person, or maybe that person is not going to pass on the same message. So that availability in situations should be there. And again, I think we as lawyers learn this from our personal experience, because when I started my career, as I'm saying that, it's very difficult to just be interacting with the partners or with the senior person in the chamber. You have to go through the other associates and everyone. And sometimes, your message doesn't go through. Sometimes you're not given credit for the things that you have done, because they never get to know that you were the one who was doing it. So at Preserve Legal, we have this thing, we have a very open culture where we discuss things very, very clearly, openly. We acknowledge the contribution that is being made. And I try to instill, because see, as lawyers, we're not employees. So as a senior person in the firm, it's my responsibility to make sure that they all become the leaders in their own right. So
Beautiful.
that's where I think leadership is headed to.
So my last question for our professional journey round: what advice would you give to young lawyers entering fields like employment law, family law, which demands both technical expertise and deep empathy?
First of all, please be open to learning. Okay. uh, Mr. Ramdev Malani used to say this thing, that we are students of law, and we'll forever be students of law. And that's absolutely true, because every day there's a new learning. So don't ever become complacent that you know everything. None of us can know everything. So forever be learning. Empathy, I think in the starting of the talk, we spoke about it, and I will again reiterate, is very, very important in our profession, irrespective of the line that you choose, because that creates the connect with your client. And that is what keeps them to go from you to any other person, and it also helps them to refer you to other people, right? So that's where the empathetic part comes in. Long hours, this profession does warrant it. There will be days where you will not feel like answering your call. There are days. No, I'm not going to lie. There are days when you don't want to answer your call, because at times the situation is so you feel so helpless for the other person that you really can't do anything about it, and you don't know what response to give. But in those moments, just imagine that if you're feeling this bad, the person who's already absolutely experiencing it, they are in a worse state. So even two kind words to them will really help. But in all of this, don't forget to have a life. Have a life, but work very hard. We need good, hardworking lawyers who know the law, who are willing to invest the time to take this profession forward. So that's just what I would say, the young lawyers.
Let's go to next round and understand now, Malika, as a person. Tell us about your family and your formative years.
So my family, I have parents, mom and dad, and my brother. He's younger to me by several years, and we have Dobby. He is my dog. So it's the five of us. We've been a nuclear family since I can remember, because my parents had moved to Gurgaon a long time back, and both me and my brother have been living here all our lives. So that's so we're a nuclear family, very small, tight knit unit, you can say so. And yeah, I mean, I think we're one of those typical families where we fight, where we make up, and where we fight some more. And that's how our life goes.
Wow.
Yeah.
So, what's your favorite childhood memory from growing up in Gurgaon?
Favorite childhood memory, is my friends and my school. So I think everything had to it doesn't matter which place you're in, if you have good company, that's all that matters. And I'm really glad to say that, growing up, I had the most wonderful set of friends, which surprisingly so, I still have all of them in my life. Because it just so happens that when you grow up, you move away, college, work, etc., and you lose touch. But I'm really glad that all my friend circle, we've stayed in touch, and the most fond memories were, going for each other's birthdays, because back then, everything was a luxury. A cake was a luxury, and celebrating it all together, getting those pencil boxes, etc., as return gifts and everything. I mean, it was a blast. So I think it was just wonderful. We all had a routine in terms of homework we do or we don't do, that's a separate thing, but we have to play absolutely every single day. So I think those were the fondest memories I've had growing up with my friends and everyone around. So yeah.
Wow. So using this platform and we are celebrating Dussehra. So what message or you would like to give to your friends?
The Sera is generally, marked with the thought that it's triumph of good over evil. Now, good over evil is very subjective, because what may be good for me may not be good for the other person.
Yes.
But generically, I would just say to everyone who's listening that, we all know in our hearts what is the right thing to do in a particular situation. So choose that. And the Sarah should not be celebrated just one day. I think every single day when we are making the right choices in our lives, we are celebrating the Sarah. And that's the purpose of this particular festival. So, yeah.
Beautiful. So let's go to your days at Government Law College. What are your memories, experience from there?
GLC, GLC, being an alumna from GLC, today I say it very proudly. When I was in college, I'll be very honest, I had no idea what is the impact of going to an institution like that. I got admitted. I was like, yeah, okay, great. 5 years, we'll have a good time in college, fun, away from home, and everything. And it was wonderful. I met wonderful set of people. Again, some of my very closest friends have I've I'm with them till today, and they are we became friends when we were in GLC. What GLC did for me in terms of changing my life was, you know, so GLC, when we were in college, had a very different way of operating. Okay, first and foremost, if anyone of our viewers would have studied in a government college, they would understand that the systems are very, very different. Okay. If it is fee collection day, then the whole day fee is getting collected. You're standing in a long queue, and it was just like that. But couple of things that college taught me first and foremost was patience. It taught me the importance of time, value and importance of time. It also taught me that doesn't matter where you come from, doesn't matter where you go. Okay. What matters is in that moment where you are, what you're doing.
Wow. So,
So,
sorry,
yeah.
continue. Adding
So,
something.
GLC, yes. And the one thing that I would like to add here, I did not realize when I was in GLC what GLC held, the importance. Today, I know, and I'm really glad to say that I am an alumna of GLC Mumbai. And I would say this to every person that, go for an institution, for all the budding, students who are listening out there who want to pursue law, choose an institution which which has a good strong alumni base. Okay, because it helps you in the future. In our profession, it absolutely helps you. So have a good base, do your learning, spend time with your seniors, and just go out and enjoy the law. And
Wow.
that's what GLC did for me. So
Beautiful. So, which is a hobby or interest which helps you to unwind and recharge?
please, people who are going to be listening to me, don't kill me for saying this, but I would love to unwind by just going off to sleep. Maybe, just sleep for as much as I can. But well, that very seldom happens. But one thing that gives me a lot of joy is cooking. I do like to cook when I have the energy. And I cook from scratch. Okay, so I am not one of those people who would ask somebody to just chop things for me and give it to me. And I'll know. I think what is actually therapeutic for me is chopping those vegetables, because then all the anger can come out in those poor vegetables. So
Oh,
yeah, but that's on a lighter side. I love cooking. I love reading. Even traveling a bit, but because of work, there's a lot of travel that I do. So yeah, not so much these days lately travel, but yes, I like to cook. That's one of the things I love to do whenever I get the time.
so let's build up on conversation on books. Uh, which is a book or movie which has left a lasting impact on you?
The book that has left a lasting impact on me, I will not just say one book, because there just cannot be one book. Um, so okay, again, you may find this funny, but Harry Potter was one of the series that's growing up as a child I've read, and I've reread them and I've been an adult. And there are some quotes in those books which stay with me, and they kind of have become like a mantra of my life. So, one of the quotes, it says that words are our most inexhaustible source of magic, capable of inflicting pain and happiness simultaneously.
Wow.
And this is something that stays with me every single day. And whenever I'm talking to someone, whenever I'm saying something, this is a thought that keeps going on, that how I say something, what I say will have an impact on the other person. And it is these small mindfulness things that if one remembers, it just makes to be you it makes you a better person, and it also creates a really nice atmosphere around you. So that's one. But yes, okay. If I now talk professionally, To Kill a Mockingbird was an amazing, amazing book. Um, then I don't know if you have seen 12 Angry Men, is a movie that is just again brilliant. Then you have so many movies, A Few Good Men and all. So movies, yes, there are so many movies on law. Though of course I will not give Tariq Pe Tariq wala movie, but still,
Yeah.
that's a starting of a lot of conversations. But yes, I think again, books you read, some things you remember, some things you forget. What you're able to remember is what goes on with you, and you become the books that you read.
Wow. Beautiful. Okay. So, we have got a series, Sri Shakti, at the Coffee Gun Show. What does Sri Shakti mean to you?
What does Sri Shakti mean to me? Sri Shakti means to be enlightened and empowered from within, um, and that we are the instruments for the change that we wish to envision.
Beautiful. So, my last one is Googly One. Describe Navmalika in one line.
I don't think Navmalika can be described in one line. It'll take at least a paragraph to describe her, but I would say that I'm a person who lives by my own standards. I do not align myself to things or to situations which I don't want to. So I am that person. I do a lot of things basis what I feel is the right thing to do. I don't adhere to the standardized norms. And yeah, that's who I am. And that's why a lot of things baffle me also at times, situations and behavior. But yeah, that's how who I am.
Wow. So, let's put you in the hot seat, the rapid fire round. Your go to comfort food.
My go-to comfort food is biryani,
Wow.
mutton biryani.
One city you love visiting the most.
I would have to say Mumbai for the simple reason of all the people who are there from my college, from my family. So
Wow. Your signature food dish.
my
You create,
signature
you
food
create,
dish
you create.
I crave. It's always a tiramisu, a good made tiramisu.
Wow. Your favorite color.
Black.
Best piece of advice received.
That people लोगों का काम है कुछ तो लोग कहेंगे लोगों का काम है कहना.
Uh, tea or coffee to recharge.
Always coffee. Tea
Very
just does
good.
not do it for me.
That's
Yeah.
nice. And you did well, and here's a book. Legally I 101, which will be autographed and sent to you. So,
Thank you.
from labor laws to family law, from compliance advisory to workplace empowerment. Now, Malika reminds us that being a lawyer isn't just about solving disputes. It's about building safer, fairer, and more inclusive spaces for people to thrive. Her journey is proof that empathy and expertise can go hand in hand and that lawyers can be both protectors of the law and advocates for change. As we close this episode, one thing is certain, Namalika's story will continue to inspire young lawyers to approach law not just as a career but as a calling. So, like that, there are 500 plus speakers who shared their in professional, personal journeys. Subscribe, implement, and make those changes in your life. And we continue the conversation with another speaker or a cup of coffee. Thank you. Take care and happy Dussehra to everyone.
Thank you. Lovely speaking to you.